Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right.
I'm sorry, Jimbo. That's what the.
How you doing, Aldo?
Hey, do you have any food by any chance?
Yes.
I do.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
There's a drink as well if you need that.
Thank you.
All right. We're just gonna wait on Tilly. She's our executive assistant. And the VP in training.
Not 10-4.
Yep. How have you been? Things good?
You're whispering, Nino?
Oh, how's it been? Have things been good?
Yeah, I've been fine.
All right.
How's the city been?
Burning for the most part.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you kind of like how much have you been filled in on the happenings of the last 4 months?
I think the last time I spoke to somebody, I believe it was about a month ago. I got an email from the Lieutenant Gray regarding my current employment with the LSPD and if I had any time of returning anytime soon. And I said as long as there's incompetency and halfway crooks running a police department, I got no interest in returning. That's probably the last time I had any contact with the police department or the city, pretty much.
So I'm gonna kind of give you the quick spiel. If you have any questions about the particulars, feel free to ask. Obviously, this is my perspective of things. I ran at Los Santos Customs. I know you stopped by quite a few times for repairs.
Good business.
Well, I stood where you're standing right now, and Max sat right over here. And after a 30-minute explanation of the current happenings in the mechanic space and trials and tribulations, he stated, this is the first time someone's given me a good overview of how things are actually going in the city. He then followed up by letting me know that due to my relationship with Eve Summers, who is my niece and someone who is supplying me with materials, and the grievances of personal nature, being with Juno Sweeney, his chief of staff, who was going to indefinitely prevent me from owning a business ever. So that's small as he tried to exemplify and he pretty much went on an adventure for the next 6 months trying to convince everyone he had a big dick. He went to the extent of making the entire Unified Police Department his personal military, which he used on his own personal vendetta, causing them to do egregious things. And ultimately, it led to him failing and dipping. He's was out of office for about 4 or 5 months, not officially, but voluntarily. And in that time, the deficit of the state continued to grow to a point now where it is in shambles. It has led to that wasn't the only reason, but that, among other happenings in the city, ultimately led to the Constitution and many pieces of legislation being rewritten by the DOJ. And there are now 2 counties, Blaine County, Los Santos County, 2 separate bits of jurisdiction. The UPD is now the BCSO and the LSPD, both functioning in their appropriate jurisdictions. Legislation is being written, particular to both jurisdictions. To give you an idea, moonshine could be illegal up in the north, while illegal in the south. Arrests originating in Los Santos, 2 belong to Los Santos, even if the jurisdiction lines are crossed. There's a lot of moving pieces, and unfortunately, the Los Santos Police Department is the most beaten down of the bunch. Not due to the lack of quality officers that exist in them, because there are, but rather just the circumstances that they were put through, right? They had been beaten down by Max, and then subsequently, officers were handpicked out of that department to put up the Blaine County. And this is no shade towards them, but it's just, I'm just kind of stating the realities. So it is my duty to put a chief of police in place and ensure that they are given the support and the guidance necessary to ensure that it becomes a strong department, not one that necessarily is focused on pursuing everyone's enjoyment as the main priority, but rather enforcing the law. The reason I wanted to talk to you, Captain Aldo, is I'm a strong believer that history is helps dictate the future. And
what did you just call me?
did I call you Aldo?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought you put a fucking rank before that. I'm just Aldo. Just call me Aldo.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. My apologies. It's old habits,
Fair
I
enough.
too was on vacation for some time, so
Look, fair enough.
we had our own, funny enough, I think we had similar levels of disgust stemming from the same origin.
Yeah.
Although, if you don't mind, I'd like to understand a little bit of that history. I had a chance to speak with both Turner and Ruth, and their insight is invaluable. I'd like to understand how things were functioning back then. What was working, what wasn't working, as I believe that has some relevancy to how things may be set up in the future.
What was working, what wasn't working. Well, back then, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the issues back then, probably by now, I at least hope, wouldn't necessarily be a thing. A lot of people, and I myself wasn't somebody that thought this way, but a lot of people had problems with the fact there wasn't enough ranks. That was a common concern. There was a few individuals that had major problems with the DAP system. I didn't see it as a problem either. There was some sort of police audit. As somebody that was involved in the police audit from the police side, I personally enjoyed it. Honestly, if you're looking to get information on the current police department, not just the history, that's something I'd recommend to you, having some sort of police audit. People going and interviewing the cops and gathering their opinions and information. I think the last mayor was an egotistical dumb fuck, but that was something he did that was smart, in my opinion. He didn't use that information for jack shit, but I think it was beneficial. The old regime, if you will, I think they were different. I have mixed opinions on it. While all three of them were different, they didn't appear unified at all times, if that makes sense. Where I can understand different people are going to have conflicting ideas, but I think ultimately you need to have resolution. Does that make sense? Like, if you have three different people in three different time zones and all of you have slightly different opinions on what the police department is, you ultimately need to come together and figure it out as a group before you just start pushing your own policies and your own shift. Does that make sense?
I do.
Like Ruth was my shift commander. So I was a senior officer under Ruth. Ruth was very strict. Ruth was very much wanting punishments and consequences. Turner, he kind of felt like, the three little bears. You had the really hot stew with Ruth. You had the lukewarm one with Turner. And then you had Slacks with the ice cold one, right? Slacks punishing somebody was like pulling teeth out of somebody's mouth in the beginning. Turner, he'd give you like a little bit of wiggle room, but he was a hard ass. And then Ruth, you know, your first punishment would be getting fucking smacked in the back of the skull, right? And those three different styles of police, and while I think they were very good, and I think all three of them were
This is
beneficial being
amazing.
in the top, I felt like at times they just never came together and actually came to a unified decision. And sometimes that would hurt the PD. But I mean, then again, when you're having three different leaders in three different time zones, it's going to be very hard to even meet, you know?
Mm. Understandable.
As far as like thinking back, I mean, it's been 6 fucking months. I can't tell you what exactly was fucking horrible, what exactly was good. I can tell you that myself, once Barrack was made the chief of police by the old mayor, that was kind of when I realized I was going to take a step back. I had a conversation with him a couple days after he became the chief of police. I asked him what his visions were, what his goals were, because I understood the previous regime's visions. I understood their goals, even if they were a little bit varied. They had a similar vision, I think, at least Turner and Ruth. And he had no plans, he had no visions, he had nothing he really wanted to do. Uh, there was no chain of command that was followed. Any single person, even a cadet, could walk up to him, have a meeting. I was still the interim captain at the time. I made a list of, I gave feedback on all the Shift 1 people that I patrolled with. I gave feedback on every single one of them, who I thought was good, who I thought was dog shit. Sent it in a high command file, gave my recommendations for what he should do, and then I resigned.
Mm.
That's personally what was it for me when Drywall Personified got made the chief of police.
Yeah. Yeah. Given how closely I think we both read Barrack, I have very similar opinions, and unfortunately, in a span of 24 hours, I have come to the very same conclusion. I refer to him as a wet noodle. He's
Yeah. I mean, he was a dog shit senior officer, in my opinion, back when we were both seniors.
mm,
I think he was good at the patrol side of things, but anything outside of just patrolling,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
So there's I'm gonna I'm putting into perspective that it's been many months.
Yep.
You know, 4 or 5. Hard to keep track. However, if you were to go back to that moment in time, and there was 3 names that you would put forward as chief, who would those
In the
names
future, I believe I actually did put 3 names forward for chief. Well, it was for ass chief, actually.
be?
Because Barrack just got given chief. Viv would be one of them. Nakota would be one of them. My third one would probably be if he, so I don't do 3 shift 1 people, would probably be McNulty.
Okay. Could you go through those names and sort of expand on why you think they would have made a decent or a fantastic chief?
Vivian Gray was somebody that was brought into the police department. I interviewed her with Captain Ruth. She probably had the best interview that I personally witnessed and that I personally conducted. When she joined the department, there was some learning curves, there were some growing pains, as everybody's going to have. But as time went on, she not only became a fantastic officer, I personally wanted to push her to senior and sergeant by the time I was out the door. I didn't stay in this department to see her grow into a lieutenant, but she was always willing to listen to the feedback I'd give her that officers would give me that she had problems with. I was willing to work with her, and she was very receptive to working with somebody that was above her. She was somebody that I think her presence would have been good in a leadership position, especially from like a patrol day to day. if I was made like permanent captain back then, which I wasn't super interested in, I probably would have put her to the lieutenant of the shift 1 back then. She was very good. Nakota has experience as he sat on the city council. Nakota's a very nice guy. He's willing to talk to a lot of people. He's very competent. I would say out of all the cops in the police department, he might be the most competent cop. He thinks things through. He gets other opinions. He's a very reasonable person. I think Nakota, and I might even still, I'd have to go through my notes. I might still have my notes written down from back then. Every single officer that I talked to in shift 1 never had anything bad to say about Nakota. He just all around was a very good cop and a very good pick for chief. And then McNulty, for different reasons, the other two, I think McNulty is somebody that brings energy. When you're around McNulty as a cop, you know, you want to. He raises the spirits, and I think having somebody like that as a figurehead is something that could be invaluable. If that's something that will be wanted.
Yeah.
I also think McNulty's a very good patrol officer, from my experience with him.
That's one thing that resonates, and we've sort of discussed is every chief needs their foil and vice versa. You know, if you don't have those two flavors, the balance of the force can kind of tilt one way or another, which isn't necessarily healthy.
I mean, I would ask you, what do you want in a chief of police? That could maybe also change my
absolutely. Sort of where things have been cut, right? I like straight shooters. I like people that can disagree with me, but not disagree with me for the sake of it, or just kind of talk to me in an emotional manner, but rather explain through their thought process. You could scream at me, I'll scream at you back, and you got to be prepared. But at the end of the day, these are two adults disagreeing. And when we walk out of that room, we have a better understanding of each other. There are going to be times where a decision needs to be made, and whether you like it or not, you're going to have to move forward with it. Otherwise, indecision gets you killed, right? I think the second aspect here is that they need to be prepared to be very administrative heavy, fundamentally, because we have legislation that needs to be passed. And, well, quite frankly, the LSPD needs to be nearly rebuilt. And I know that kind of word and restructure and all this kind of stuff has a lot of negative connotations due to, well, I'm not too familiar why, but I can kind of see it in the offices when those words are used, that they don't take too much of a liking to it. But it's a reality. It's a reality because the two jurisdictions are a major change. It's also a reality because in the current state of the police department, half the officers don't know RS and PC, and they keep losing all their court cases. A lot of dysfunctionality. If anything, all those things are a sign that things do need to be built up. But there's another two things that I've been very much advocating for is swift action to any accountability problems. Officer does something extremely out of line, shoots a civilian, for example, without any cause. I want that handled that day at max 48 hours. Prevents any malice forming internally, drama stirring, etc. Punish often and punish swift. Allows the civilian to know that police took action. Builds trust.
What would your punishments? What would you want? Would you want hefty punishments, or would you want slaps on the wrist?
Entirely reflective
Case.
of what civilians face when incarcerated. Hourly suspensions, suspended for 3 hours if it's some small shit. If it's big enough, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days.
When somebody shoots a fucking civilian in cold blood,
The
criminal charges.
Well, I mean, suspend for 3. It better be on the docket by 3, if it's like that. And now, if it's in the docket after 3 days, well, maybe that's depend case by case. But you kind of get my drift. That might be a longer suspension. I think there's a lot of pushback. I think from at least the conversation, like from my perspective, right, being a lawyer, right, I interface with a lot of civilians on a different kind of level. But I also have to, interface with officers, and the perception I have is that the PD kind of lives in an odd way in its own world, at least currently. I don't know, harder for me to say how it was back then, where I feel like if an officer does something that would otherwise get them arrested, or does something egregious, something that leaves that civilian feeling a kind of way, that all of a sudden there is a desire to do 1 week of investigation, 2 weeks of investigation, and that every detail of that matter needs to remain internal. I am the very opposite of that. That if, for example, Tilly Winters here, when her cell phone and SIM card were illegally searched for whether it was ha-ha, he-he, or because the detectives were too stupid to understand what a search and seizure is about, that those individuals should, as soon as it was found out, would have gotten 3 days suspension and a press conference noting that was discovered by the PD and the actions that took place was given out.
I don't mean to interject here,
Please.
but I think the police department's investigations, internal investigations, need to stay private until they are complete. Then once they are complete, I think they should be released to the public.
I agree. In that particular case, but 3 days should have been enough. Now, I can understand that there may be reasons, but why more than 3? There better be a good reason, and it can't be, well, you know what, I decided to play golf the next 2 days. You can talk to me later. No, your fucking job is going to be on the line if you don't come back, because if you're going through someone's fucking phone without authorization, what the fuck else are you willing to do? That's my perspective.
Yeah. Do you know who the current, I know who the current LSPD high command is, if they haven't changed at all. Who's the current Blaine County high command?
Bones and Cassidy.
Okay. Right. So, I'm assuming you're looking for feedback on folk for the chief of police position, and then that chief could pick their ass chief. Are you trying to get feedback for like everybody, pretty much?
No, I would love to. I think any information is good. I have limited
I think
insight.
based off of what you just said, you're looking for in a chief. I personally would recommend Dakota or Viv. I think Viv is a very valuable asset to patrol, so that would be my only holding back. If you want them to do a ton of administrative work, maybe it would be suited for something better like assistant chief of police, captain, or lieutenant, depending on what ranks are in the fucking chain nowadays. Dakota, I think, is not shy to administrative work. I think it's where he excels. I think he's very thorough with. I've had many conversations with him, and we've talked through things to get to where we need to go. And I think that's something that if you're looking for that in a chief of police, he's somebody that will do that with you. He'll talk with you until you guys come to a resolution.
That's good.
There's somebody at this door, by the way.
Tilly, could you check for me real quick?
Could I do what?
Oh.
Tilly, why didn't you answer the phone? Come here.
Did you call me?
Abby, could you check to make sure one of them isn't dead?
I was about to think that.
Yeah.
I was about to.
Absolutely. Perhaps today we could do lunch.
But yeah.
All right.
I can't stress enough that Barrick is somebody that I I wouldn't put him anywhere near command.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
I don't know. Maybe that's keep in mind this is an old take.
No,
but
it's pretty fresh.
okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
he this stupid fuck did some really dumb shit, and he admitted to me that he was trying to suck my dick for 6 weeks. So I don't know how I can ever trust a man like that. Not not like actually, but
No, I know what you meant.
yeah.
No.
So I'm not surprised he got made chief by. He tried to do whatever he probably tried to do with Max, and I don't
Do you
play
even
fuck
know what he
games.
tried to do with Max?
No.
Do you want to know?
Yes.
All right. So at some point, the three old captains had a meeting with the old mayor, and from what I recall, what happened is he was being an egotistical maniac as usual, and he said some shit, and Ruth challenged him, and the two of them got into a screaming match. And with the old PCP, the whatever the hell it was called, the police legislation he had that was basically making him the dictator of the police department. Ruth said something like, and this is 4 or 5 months old, so I could be misquoting, but Ruth said something along the lines of, what if I just came in and put out a document that said, now I'm in charge of the DOJ? And he said, treason, treason, treason. Nope, can't change my mind. Treason, treason. So a whole big thing. Ruth put out a thing on the MDT, said if anybody's looking to charge me with treason, the mayor's demanding it. He's screaming that I should be charged with treason. If you believe you can charge treason, if you build up a proper investigation, you are welcome to try to charge me. Well, of course, little old Barrick, took that opportunity and started to investigate it. From what I understood, he also pulled over myself and Turner at the time were looking into trying to impeach the mayor because we believed that was the only way we could save the police department, and we were looking into viable ways to do so. There was a traffic stop where Maisie Gray reported that the mayor at the time said if they don't do something that he will personally fire them, and me and Turner were coming up with a way to with the definition it's a long time ago, but basically the definition of fucking extortion also counted to have government employees positions held held as a possible firing, right? Like an argument way back when I was in Shift 1, an argument was made that Dana Blackwell extorted a lawyer because she refused to do service. She refused to work with a lawyer down in the cells because she didn't like him or some shit like that. And the other lawyer's argument was, that government position was suspended basically, and he couldn't do anything, or his client would have had his rights violated. I don't fucking remember. You got to look up the charge. I don't got my MDT with me. Basically, me and Turner, we thought there was enough wiggle room there that maybe we could put something on the docket and possibly get extortion, but we needed Barrick and I believe Flop's statements in the report as Gray was with them, and they refused to put their statements in the reports. I always thought that was very strange. Then Barrick wanted to investigate Ruth, and that's what led Ruth to fully stepping down from captain and put me in charge as interim captain, because she believed if she was going to be investigated for treason and there's going to be charges pushed on her for treason, then she shouldn't be an acting captain of the LSPD. I think she stepped down prematurely, but understood the logic, I suppose. And Barrick, quote unquote, was investigating it. Then he got made chief of police, and no charges ever got stuck. No investigation ever really happened, is what I think.
I wonder why.
It's because it wasn't treason, but he just wanted to blow the mayor.
Yeah.
It was it was a It was probably the clearest act of not treason in a long time as well.
Yeah. Yeah, funny enough, that's not the only case of it. It's, treason's been thrown around quite a bit and keeps either not going to court or getting,
Well,
failing.
treason in and of itself is an extremely hard thing to push. So trying to base that off of one person's hypothetical sentence, you would never get that to pass in a million years.
So they got treason.
And even
Oh
the
wait,
Chief Justice at the time said it wasn't treason.
yeah, Jesus.
And yeah, anyway. But yeah, that motherfucker is a worm that needs to be stepped on.
Oh, he was today.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, that motherfucker is useless.
Yeah.
Who I don't even know who did he make as chief? Was it?
Well, Max made Ruby as chief, which
Ruby,
was
okay.
my next question. I'm gonna name some offices, and I'd like to get your understanding of
Where
where
I
you
would-
kind of line them up.
Okay.
Ruby York,
Officer senior.
Sky Fake,
Officer. I don't fucking know who that is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. If you don't know, please, because I know.
Yeah, well, like
know.
I remember the name. That sounds like
Under-
a shift 3 person. I didn't really speak to many
Oh.
shift 3 people.
Oh, you were shift 1.
Yeah, I was shift 1, and I
gotcha.
would wake up. I was shift 1. I was late shift 1 some nights because waking up that early is hard.
Yeah, understandable.
Yeah.
Cletus Cornwood.
Prison.
I'm going through names. There, Abby. If what offices we talked about? Vivian. We talked about Dakota. Talked about McNulty. I brought up Ruby York. Cletus. Recall the rest of our list. I don't remember.
Wait, Turner.
You mean Wyatt Turner?
Oh, Wyatt Turner. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Wyatt Turner was my recommendation for chief of police back in the day.
Oh, Slacks.
Slacks. That's a tough one.
Yep.
That's a tough one.
Well, we can skip over that one.
Yeah, I'd probably need a little bit more of a dialogue for Slacks.
Yeah, understandable. He's in ICU, by the way, if you didn't know.
Oh shit.
Yep.
I'll send him a text or something.
Um,
All right. Who else?
shit. Anita May.
Ruby.
At least Sergeant.
Ooh, okay. You said a name there, Abby?
Ruby, if you hadn't mentioned her.
Oh, yeah.
We answer Ruby.
I'm trying to.
It's a short list, Mr. Jackson.
Oh, you know what? For shits and giggles, Bones.
Bones.
Yeah.
I think he would excel in a lieutenant position. But if he is the sheriff, then I think he is probably fine in that position. Because quite frankly, yeah, I'm guarantee you, if I go on my phone and I pull up the roster, if I go through that list of people on that active roster, there's probably only like 4 or 5 of them that can even competently do command work. He is somebody that I trust could at least do some command work, even if he can only type 20 words a minute.
That's really good to hear. What are those 4 names?
Like people that I think are competent.
Yeah.
Shift 1, probably Viv, Nakota, Anita were very, very competent. Haley Maxwell, I always thought was good, but she was up and coming when I was out the door. She just made officer. Those are 4 names I think are pretty good folk in Shift 1. Shift 2, back when I was around, it was McNulty, always thought was very solid. Bones, always thought was great. Who else is in Shift 2 that I used to Duncan's an interesting one. Duncan, quite frankly, talks more than he does anything, but I think deep down inside he's a good guy. I think he means well, and he wants what's best for the department. Slacks is an interesting one because when I was first in this department in the first few weeks, I believe the exact quote I made about slacks to Captain Ruth was, "I respect shit on my shoe more than I respect Captain Slacks." But as time went on in the police department, and he started to have a little bit more of a spine, I started to grow some respect for him. I think Slack's a good guy. I think he wants to be officers' friends more than he wants to be their bosses. But ultimately, I think he is somebody that would do well with pretty much any position given, as long as it's probably not a captain or a captain above position.
Okay. Okay.
I'm trying to think who else in shift 2. Yeah, I already answered Cornwood. That motherfucker needs to be in prison. Aziz was shift 2, I think. Aziz, I'd
passed
put him
away.
in a sergeant. Aziz passed away.
He did.
Oh. And nobody informed me.
My condolences. I don't really know the details. Only heard about it recently. It was a good one.
Aziz was a complicated one. He really he didn't get along with everybody, and he was rough around the edges. But I really enjoyed him, and I thought he was a really quality officer when he actually just sat down and did his cop work. Me and him, I think, had a very good relationship because I shot straight with him all the time, and he did with me, and I appreciated that.
Is there any questions you got for me? Curiosity, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe.
you kind of answered it. Well, I was gonna ask what you wanted me down here for, but that kind of got answered throughout the meeting. And then I asked you about what you wanted in chief of police. What does the mayor powers even have nowadays? What, do you install a chief of police? Do you get to come in and give feedback? Do you get to come in and give?
It's a bit
full
open-ended.
power? What is it? Yeah.
I mean, inherently speaking, I can pick the chief of police, which means I can replace the chief of police, which means if I'm not happy, changes can come. However, in relation to how I intend to run this mayorship, it is via policy. Meaning I set forth policy and the chief enacts that in policy in the best way that they see fit. Example being, I may put more emphasis on civilian rights or like, community policing or whatever. I may put emphasis, for example, on my strong opinion on punish quick and often. I may push policy for, focus like, hey, we need to see more movement in the area of narcotics. Or, hey, you know what? Let's pull back and focus on building instead of reacting to every call. So I kind of see that as like the high level policy, but,
like politicking, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm like the interface to the people.
As far as shift 3 as well, by the way, I didn't get to see everybody in shift 3. I think Matt Rhodes and Lucas were two that I always thought were good from the little bits I heard and little bits I saw. A lot of the shift 3 people, Watson was pretty decent as well. Alice Watson. Barrick.
What happened to
useless.
Watson? I haven't
Flop,
seen him.
even more useless than him.
Really?
One day I looked at his reports, and he had 2 reports written in a month. Can you believe that? And he was a senior officer. He's one of the 8 senior officers.
What?
This motherfucker had like 2 reports written in 1 month. How the fuck are you that incompetent? I FTO'd for 40 hours that month, and I had more reports when I had cadets making reports. How the hell are you that useless? But yeah, Barrick.
Really?
Flop, put him in a fucking grave. Who else? Oh, I got one for you.
Yeah.
Forte. Do you know Forte?
Oh yeah, the detective.
Oh, that motherfucker is the most useless motherfucker I've ever met in my life. I made that motherfucker clean up vomit and he told me he would rather quit the police department than touch vomit. That's what he told me, and he cried about it. God forbid his superior officer tells a cadet to clean something up. He's lucky. He's lucky I didn't just fire him on the spot as a senior, because I would have done it and gotten bitched at, but I still should have done it. That's my one regret.
Well,
Yeah.
if it makes you feel better, I'm pretty sure he's being investigated right now by the marshals.
I think it may have, based on, I think he may be gone.
Oh shit, already?
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, he just got fired.
Okay. Well,
Good fucking
yeah,
riddance.
he tried to bribe a county clerk for a weapons license after he failed to let her know what criminal negligence on ownership of a firearm is.
I said it back in the I said it way back in the day. He was a solo cadet, whatever the hell we called it back then, and a probationary officer, and he had like 20 incidents against him already. That's an exaggeration, by the way. And I said, this motherfucker should not be put to full officer.
I had a feeling,
and well, they did.
but
I guess now they're firing him.
damn.
Who could have thought?
Jesus.
Who could have thought?
The
fuck is a marshal, by the way?
So, after the on July 3rd, the powder keg that was slowly brewing on the back of Max's negligence, he left the state in a position where there was extreme turmoil and mistrust. One thing led to another, and a populace stormed the courthouse, ultimately resulting in that being redirected to the LSPD. And among that and many other things, a handful of judges stepped up, wrote up a new constitution, and a marshal's office was opened up, now under the helm of Justice Angel. And their function is both oversight and in terms of ensuring that investigations that may lay dormant continue. So, for example, with Max, right? If he so chose at that time to prevent any investigations from taking place with him, the marshals could, in turn, take that over, right? They also would perhaps, like, for example, if I start crossing the line, the LSPD may not be interested in looking into me. The BCSO, perhaps, right? But not the LSPD. But if, let's say, both weren't doing it, there was some negligence, they could take it over. So they got a couple facets to them. It is in legislation. If you're curious, you could, check it at the courthouse.
I'll read it as I leave. Honestly, I said this about the old regime. And by that I mean the old mayor's office and Department of Justice. I'm going to say it about this. Is how it sounds. The Department of Justice needs to stop dabbling with police matters and focus on actually building the Department of Justice. Quite frankly, there was a civilian oversight board that, if I remember correctly, when I was an officer and a senior, that Ruth and I believe Slacks wanted to work with, and Turner was against it. For any findings they found as a civilian investigating department, they bring to the police department and they handle and punish them based on it. And Chief Justice Crane and Mayor Maximilian, they just never did it. They never built anything up in the Department of Justice, and instead just wanted power over the police department. Department of Justice needs to focus on being the Department of Justice. This is my first 2 cents of that.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. I think, when there's power vacuums, someone's going to come in and fill it. And I think the marshal's office, I have my reservations. But, the state is where it is. And I need to find a way to build with, sort of the facts in front of me. Although there is a document I'm going to be sending it away. Please
Sure.
do take a look at it when you can. And
All right.
I'd like to hear your response.
Sounds good.
All right. Do you have any other questions for me?
I have no questions for you,
All
sir.
right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to help us rebuild Los Santos.
Yep. Honestly, if it was somebody else, I probably wouldn't have ignored them. But look, I appreciated our relationship back when I patrolled. Okay.
Infernos, thank you the 5 months. And likewise, you're one of the few that was willing to hear out a civilian.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day. All right. You have a good rest of your day. All right.
Yeah.
You need anything? You shoot me an email. I can't promise I'll respond. All right.
Will do.
Take care.
Thank you,
Aldo.
Mr. Jackson.
No problem.
If anything, imagine these three being consultants on making sure things are done right. Like,
Yeah.
Beautiful, really.
The